Who wants to do it for the last time?
Who wants to do it?
Hey everyone,
I'm
welcome back
adolescent.
to another episode of Cheaper Than Therapy.
Hmm.
Aw.
Aw.
Today is our farewell for now
Hmm.
episode. We promised you we wouldn't leave you hanging, that we'd do another one.
I feel
And so
like I
here we
should
are.
sing from the Sound of Music. So
Please,
long, farewell,
Auf
adieu, saying
Wiedersehen,
goodbye.
goodbye.
Adieu, adieu to the end. Okay, that's enough today.
It's weird, right? Because obviously we see each other and talk a lot, like you're in my life. So us
Mm.
saying goodbye in this way, it's like you and I are going to still be seeing each other and talking a lot. And listen, even as listeners, like y'all are going to be, you can't get rid of us that easily.
Good luck.
Good
Just
luck
kidding.
getting rid of us. But yeah, I mean, we do retreats and we have our workshops and we'll talk about all that at the end of the conversation. But that's why I say it's goodbye for now,
Hmm.
at least in one form.
Yes.
But if you will humor me, I would like to maybe dive into a reflection. Maybe start in the past, and work our way to the future or the present. Um, I was thinking as I was kind of preparing, obviously, to have the last conversation with you. Um,
Sorry.
preparing for the Last Supper. I had been listening to a bunch of our first episodes.
Can I just say for a second,
What?
just the fact that you've been preparing for this last episode, and I'm like, so should we get on and do this?
Well, not preparing more than just I listened to like the first, I think,
Aw.
episode or 2 or something. And I have to say the
Mhm.
the number one thing that I noticed out of everything, your voice sounds so much younger.
Really?
Your voice has changed. I don't think mine has changed, but it's hard to know. Obviously, you don't listen to yourself as much, but you sound like a baby.
That doesn't surprise me. I feel like I was a baby 4 years
Mhm.
ago in so many ways. It feels like a different lifetime. I'm gonna go back and listen now, but that doesn't surprise me. I did this thing where I was speaking a few days ago, and you know how you just have those moments of like, I feel like more mature in my
Mhm.
version of self than I have in the past. And so yeah, I'm like I would wager that your voice is a little baby Vanessa too. But I'm gonna go back and
Maybe. I don't
listen for the
know. I
record.
mean, listen to it and tell me. I didn't find that it was a ton of difference for me. I mean, again, it's
Mm,
hard to hear yourself, but I think
mhm,
for you especially, I mean, Jesus, if you think about it, like I had a 3-week-old, I think,
mhm.
the first episode. Um we hadn't even done lockdown yet, right? Or we had just started lockdown. I mean, it was crazy, right? If you go back and listen, um, where we've been, where we were, who we are now. I mean, it's just wild. I think so much evolution and growth.
Yes.
I don't know. What do you think? What's been, I guess, something do you feel like you can answer that question? Like, what do you feel like has been like your biggest evolutionary kind of point or like the thing in you that's evolved the most over this 4 years?
Oof. you know, it's so much of what we talk about in terms of Jungian psychology and then the individuation process. And I feel like the last 4 years for me have been like a quickening of that process. I think about how much I was either like in the final bits or like just come no, I mean, I guess just coming out of an almost 12-year marriage and really sort of like in a destabilizing space in my life of like what are going to be my next steps. What does life look like outside of a we, and I'm now differentiating into a me, and a lot of fear, I think, at that point. But just in that space of like, okay, if everything that you've been conditioned for a lifetime to believe is true is not necessarily going to be your truth anymore, and you get to define your truth for yourself, what do you want that truth to be, Danae? And actually, I do remember, shout out to Saffron Rossi, who, if you can book an astrology reading with her, y'all, you should do it. But it's hard to get on her calendar because she goes on like a lot of sabbaticals and doesn't do them often. But I had gotten on her calendar and did an astrology reading. And I remember, now that you say that, it was so close to when we started the podcast. And there was just so much about that first reading with her that was like, you are like in this space of everything that has come to be true over the last 4
Mm.
years. You know, she was like, you really believe that you can't be the fullest embodiment of yourself in relationships. And so you're going to learn how to negotiate around that. And it's not going to be just for you, but it's going to be for you to be of service and supporting others with that work, because it's so much of our collective work around unpacking these codependent templates that we've been living with for centuries now. And so, yeah, I really feel like it was the jump off point of that journey, that odyssey. I was just talking to a client about the odyssey. Is that a book? Um, it was like the jump off point of that, like that aspect of my hero's journey, that we started this podcast together, and we've been sort of documenting it as we move, you know?
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? I mean, obviously people who listen know that we're talking from the perspective of being space holders, clinicians, healers, whatever you want to call it, but also we're human and we've brought in a lot of our humanity. And that was always really important to us from the jump. And,
Mhm.
it was important to hold, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I know you feel the same, but hold myself accountable to that, not only in the podcast, but in the way I show up, even in working with my clients, you know?
Mm.
And I think that the podcast and my client work intermingled in a way. Like I think they fed off of each other, right? Like
Mhm.
the insights and the lessons I think that I was having coming to understand through the work that you and I, because really in many ways we would be processing things, right?
Mhm.
I mean, not completely raw, right? I think that yeah, I've said this before, like have a little bit of a responsibility to not come in and bleed out without having some understanding of what's going on for me. But I do think that so much of what we've talked about, whether it was guests or whether it was just you and I, has been like a processing of what's been happening for us. And then to take that into not just my life, but also my work with clients has been, I don't know, it's been different. It's been,
Mm.
I mean, I want to say the word profound, but it's definitely created or turned me into, or I don't know what word I want to use, like the clinician that I am today. Because
Mm.
definitely when I think about practicing with clients then and practicing with clients now, it does feel different. Like I feel very sure of myself as a clinician, as a space holder, not in a way that I'm not teachable, like not in a way that I'm not still very, very deeply committed to this idea of beginner's mind always and forever. That will always be my practice. But I do feel more sure of myself and my footing and kind of
Mm.
who I am and like what I'm good at and what I'm not and where my growing edges are and what I'm willing to kind of work at and what I've accepted is just not who I am or not how I am or not how I operate. Like that I think has has come more to fruition through us being able to kind of meet weekly together.
So if you had to say, because you listened to those first couple episodes and you're listening to
Mhm.
Vanessa then, like what was the biggest difference in the way that she saw the world then versus the way that she sees the world now?
I just got this image of you're gonna laugh at this. I just had this image of like it was a combination image of kind of like uh the the music video Wrecking Ball and like a boulder rolling downhill and just kind of like cartoonish like running you
Mhm.
over. Um because again, I had a 3-week-old. Like I had no
Mm.
fucking idea what was about to happen
Mm.
to my life. I just didn't. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of us, I think I thought I had it all under control. I think I thought
Mm.
I knew. I think I thought I had an understanding of what was about to happen or what that transition was going to be. And I have to laugh at myself now because I'm like, oh, sweetie, you had no fucking idea about the wrecking ball that was about to just hit you. And even those very, very early episodes, we did a couple very early on about motherhood and like the real,
Mhm.
real on motherhood. And being able to be so open and so candid. And I think both of us, maybe in those early stages of motherhood, I mean, you were 2 years in, but that was something I think we both really stood on was this like
Mm.
no shame. we're going to talk about it. We're going to say the things that a lot of women don't feel safe enough to talk about because they feel very judged.
Mm,
And we've never apologized for that. We've never looked back. We've always done that when it comes to motherhood and parenthood. And we've gotten a lot of love for that because I've,
mm,
so many people have reached out in appreciation, I think, for the way that we've been really candid about the struggles of mothering in a patriarchal society,
mm.
in a patriarchal capitalistic society. I mean, yeah, I don't know, wrecking ball. That's the best image I could come up with. It came up pretty quickly, pretty instant. And relationally too, right? I mean, motherhood for my individual like self, but also the impact parenthood was going to have on me in my
Mm,
relationship. You know, I don't think I was prepared for that. I'm so glad that it happened on the other side of it. I mean, the romantic relationship I'm in now it's literally a different relationship than the one that I started before my kid was born.
mm,
Him and I were actually just talking about that not that long ago. Like we feel like we've already done one of those death rebirth cycles, even
mm.
in just, a little under 7 years.
Beautiful.
Wild.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah.
I don't know, girl. It's I also have a lot of favorite moments. I think we've talked to some pretty fucking awesome people.
It's so fascinating to I don't know, I guess maybe it's because we did it so regularly for so long, that it's hard for my mind to like go back and think about, like you were talking about, like the experience of motherhood and how much, and I feel like we never talk about motherhood now. So I'm like, or maybe I just don't, but like,
Not
I'm like,
anymore.
that's fascinating that's like, that was a aspect of something that was alive a lot more at the time, I guess. Certainly with a newborn, right? Like, and I'm like, well, that's fascinating. Like, I'm like, do people talk to us about motherhood? I feel like we never talk about it, but it just speaks to the way the show has continued to shift and evolve, and the topics that are like really alive for us are consistently shifting.
Yeah, I mean, I think even like, well, think about it, right? Like you had a 2-year-old, so you were in
Mhm.
it, and I had a brand new baby, so I was definitely in it. And we were in lockdown, so we were
Mm,
all in it 24/7 without any reprise. So I think that the
mhm,
vice was really tight. And I think there was a lot of like holy shit moments that were being had in the struggle of
mm,
early motherhood that again I don't think people were really giving space for honest conversations. But yeah, I mean, are we in that situation now? I mean, no, it looks different. Motherhood is still not easy for me. I still struggle with it.
mm,
Um, but it's like now I'm dealing with new things, right? It's like new struggles as she's 4.5 going on 15 and what that's like. But that was much more like raw, not sleeping, still breastfeeding, still hormones whacked
mhm,
out. Now I'm just on the other side, perimenopause hormones whacked out. I guess it's just, the continuation.
mhm.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Different lives. Um, so when I was doing that, I was scrolling through. So I went back and I was like, because I have the worst memory, like the worst memory of all time. I will have a conversation, y'all, and like within minutes, I don't remember what we talked about. I also will talk to guests, and like a week later, I'm like, wait, who? Who did we talk to? It's just,
Mm,
I don't know if it's an ADHD thing or what, but always has been my thing. And I was going through and when I was thinking about some of my favorite conversations or favorite moments, there was a bunch that kind of stood out. But I have to admit, when I scrolled through, I was like, oh shit, I forgot about oh shit, I forgot
mm.
about that one. So I had this moment where I remember how excited it was the first guest that we had where you and I both were like kind of giddy and really nervous and excited was Sean Corn.
Aw.
That was
Mm.
our first like, oh my God, we're talking to Sean Corn. And I was like, God, what, 2+ years ago at this point? But we were so excited. And I just
That
had
was
like a
early
moment.
on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, there's been a couple of those moments of just like, I can't believe that we get to talk to someone whose work, has been so impactful in our path. I think certainly Marianne Williamson was one of those
Mhm.
moments for both of us. More recently, our last episode, Michael Beckwith, I
Mhm.
was working hard to keep it together the whole
Yep.
time, but I feel like so many of the connections and relationships that we cultivated in conversations have just been such a gift, to
Yeah.
people that we wouldn't have necessarily maybe had conversations with otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of I feel like friendships through, I mean, shout out to Jeremiah Latimo
Aw,
and
Jer.
even Sean Galanos. Like that was a
Mhm,
connection that was originally through the podcast, right?
mhm,
Rainier, we had Rainier on the podcast, Rainier
mhm,
Wild, um, Amani, Amani Tot, who I
mhm,
love. We had her on the podcast. I mean, there's just been so many where I'm like, oh, there's been such a like a cohort, I suppose, that has
mhm.
been kind of established through these deep conversations, Annie undone. We had 2 with her back to back where we were like, "We need to have you back again." Deb Silverman, like, that was another one in the very beginning. We were
Mm,
like, "Holy shit, we've been, you know, watching her work for 10 plus years," and to be able to have a conversation with her was, like, wild.
mm.
Mm, I don't know. I'd be curious to know, people listening, if you guys remember, like, what your favorites were, but those were mine.
Yeah. I'm like, write us, let us know.
You what?
I'm like, yes, write us. Tell us your favorites.
I know. We're not going anywhere.
It's not a two-way conversation. So it's tough, but you can certainly come and visit us and tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wanna also kind of, before we say like what's next and kind of where we're going and all that,
Mm,
and I think both of us want to give maybe like a takeaway. um I want to, because that I'm really not good with words. I've
mm,
articulated this many times on this podcast, but also just in life, I am not a words of affirmation person.
mm,
um but I want to do my best to acknowledge that the podcast would not be what it had been without you. There was something about our dynamic, but your kind of ability to go there, I think is pretty unmatched, in my opinion. I
mm,
think that, you have this kind of ability to show up, like even in the midst of like chaos, and do your best to kind of like be there and be grounded and like, be steady. And I think that's a gift. For sure. For many, I think that's a gift, and I think it shows with people who are gravitating towards you, because you do have this steadying presence that I think when people feel like lost or adrift, it's hard to find.
mm.
And so
Thank
I
you,
think you add
baby.
that energy, And I also will say, going back to motherhood, like watching you evolve over the last 4 years as a mother has been kind of I don't know, an honor to watch and witness.
Mm. Well, that makes me emotional coming from one of the best moms I know. And even hearing you say that, because I think of like when there's crisis, that's when you're like on, you're like, out of my way, I got this.
Yes, this parentified
I'm like,
child
me? Like, that's you. You're
is great in
talking about,
chaos.
I'm like, I feel like you're talking about yourself right now, but okay. I'm like, Vanessa, what do we do? But sure, thanks, I'll take it. Um, but I think there's circling back to, and I will come back to the affirmations for you because I'm not
I
afraid to
didn't
let
give
you
to
know about
receive.
yourself, girl. um, but I think there's a way. I'm still thinking about motherhood, and I receive what you just said, and I'm grateful for it. I think what ended up happening with me a little bit in the trajectory of the last 4 years was I realized the way I was going to be able to do motherhood and get through it was that it was going to have to be like a I did it my way type of situation, and that my kiddo was going to probably have a very different mom than a lot of the moms that he might see around
Mhm.
him, and that in a lot of ways just our family system was going to look a lot different than other families, and it works for us and it's ours. It's a very quintessential modern family. But it's funny, someone was saying to me the other day, I really respect how private you are about motherhood and about your kiddo. You very rarely see him on social and things. And I said, well, thank you. I think I'm like that a little bit because it's still like the most tender space in my life, the space that um, you know, you can say a lot to me. I'll be like, well, that's your opinion. But if you say something about, the job I'm doing as a mother, I will probably feel a little of that just because it's the most vulnerable space for me, like the space that I so desperately like want to be good for this kid because he so deserves it. He's just you know, to the best of my ability, I want to be what he deserves in a mama. And I think that's our work as mothers certainly is to quiet that voice that tells us it's never enough and that
Mhm.
we're not good enough, that I think is like the generational pain point that's been passed down from our mothers, and say, it's good enough,
Mhm.
who I am is good enough. And even if I'm designing it in a way that makes no sense to any other person on the planet, this is my way. And this is what allows me to feel good and like I'm doing the best I can and,
Mhm.
getting through today and all of the things. But anyway, I say all that to say I deeply respect who you are as a mother, because I think you are really amazing at mothering long before you were a mother to a child. Not necessarily by choice, but you were just always a really mothering energy and just had a lot of intuitive wisdom around how to mother. I know that I leaned on you in those first years a lot around like the things that I wasn't sure of. And you were like, it'll be fine. It's do it this way and whatever. And watching you mother and the softening that has come over you
Mm.
as a mother, the way that like I see how much like you will just like get down on the floor and like the world around you stops with that little girl in a way that I'm just like, look at her, this like boss babe Vanessa that when I met you, you were like this, corporate out of my way, I'll tackle this very linear woman. And yet with this little girl, like everything else disappears. And it's just so beautiful to witness how unbelievably committed you are to being the mother that she deserves, right? So
Mm.
there's that.
It's wild how I think too, like, maybe that's also something that I mean, there's obviously so many things that I think connect you and I as friends and as souls, but I think you said something that kind of stuck with me, which is I think whether we're talking about motherhood, whether we're talking about relationships, romantic or friend, whether we're
Mhm.
talking about career or growth or trajectory, anything, I feel like there's this deep commitment to unpacking the nonsense that we've been passed
Mhm.
down,
Mhm.
and like a commitment to doing it our way, even if that's seemingly harder um,
Mhm.
on the surface, you know? And I think that there's a way that we try really hard to support each other in the choice that is our choice because it's almost like we both know that there's not a lot of support out there for people who want to do it differently.
Mhm.
And I feel like we have tried at least to provide that for people, whether listening to the pod or retreats or even our clients too, is it's like there is another way to do this. It might be a little bit harder at first because there's no support for way showers usually. But if you're committed to doing things that feel authentic to you, you can do it. And we'll be here to support you in that.
Yeah. And I think that's been a lot of the growth in our individual lives, our individual relationships, our individual, like, I started to say our individual friendship, but I guess it's not individual if it's the two of us. But in our friendship, it's like, so much of what I think people reflect to us in our dynamic, and we've certainly held as something that we really value about our relationship dynamic, is that you are both different in a lot of ways. There's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of
Hmm.
ways that you experience the world that is different, or the ways that you talk about things that can sometimes be a different approach, but you both hold so much reverence for the other person's perspective. And like, I think a lot of people tell us that, we've learned a lot about like how to disagree but still do it in a respectful way.
Hmm.
I don't know that we like disagree a ton on like big things, but I think when there's like something that we're working out different perspectives, or for whatever reason we feel like we are not seeing things in alignment on something, I think the way that we've negotiated how to do that, I certainly love. And I think that there's something about, I was thinking about what you were saying about like when there is a crisis, you genuinely are that person that keeps your head very level. You are very able to like like, I've never known anyone with the belief in herself to execute that you have. Like, there's very little that you aren't certain you can do and figure out and find a way. And I've always admired that so much because from very young, you knew I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to make it happen. And I think certainly with this podcast, it has kept going because of that fortitude within you and you saying, okay, we don't have it. Like, we'll figure it out. I'll find someone. I'll figure out how to do this, And I'm so grateful for the way that you have fought to keep the show going, not just for me, because I know it wasn't about me so much as it was about, like, you wanting to be of service to what this podcast offered to people for the 4 years that it's been on the air, And I think, both you and my ex, Mikey, like, I often say that I married Mikey, and then, like, I found Vanessa, and they're, like, the same, like, the way that
We
they
are.
process the world, but both of you don't quit. And I'm like the biggest, like, well, it's not working on to the next, like, whatever. And both of you are like, nope, I've started this. I will finish this. I will see it through. And I think this podcast and all of the beautiful experiences we've had and the people that it has supported are because of that within you. So thank you for
Mm,
that, because if you hadn't had that agility and that ability to fight to make this real and tangible and workable in the way that you did, this would have never happened. That was all you, babe.
thank you. I received that. I recognize that my partner is similar to you. I think the mix of us is it's
Yes.
good. We help bring each other into the middle ground, you know. So I
Mhm.
think there's the extreme of that can also be not knowing when to let go.
Mm.
Obviously, which I've struggled with throughout my life. So I think there's been a lot of lessons around safety, inner safety, letting go of things and knowing and trusting that it's okay. You
Mm.
know, things 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 can end and it doesn't equate to failure, it doesn't equate to um something not being a success or an accomplishment or
Mhm.
that's definitely a hard lesson. I think to embody when you are somebody who's used to like just getting it done no matter what. But I think if I were to say to like even a takeaway, it would be that. I think one of my biggest takeaways that I would offer to people, I mean, I have a lot, but I think you just reminded me like one of my biggest takeaways I want to offer to people listening is that we have to learn and continue to work to learn to trust in the cycles of everything,
Mm.
of, you know, eh, Mother Earth, everything is in cycle, everything is cyclical. And, without death, there is no birth. And it's really important that we honor, but that we are able to be agile. We're able to let go of things that need to be let go of, to give
Mm.
space for, to give room for things to be born, right? Um, I think
Yes.
really cultivating a sense of celebration around the deaths or the endings has been important for me in my life, right?
Mm.
Because when you cultivate a celebratory mindset and a celebratory kind of perspective of endings and deaths, you're less afraid of them. It's
Mm.
like, why do we celebrate birth and we don't celebrate death? It's just an interesting thing to be with, that thought, because we're fucking terrified of endings. And I know that that's my thing too. And so it's been something I've continued to work on. And I think that this podcast has like aided me in that.
Mm. I was just thinking about how, tarot has become such a, I don't know, like a touchstone in my life over the last 4 years that now every day my routine is that I like wake up, I meditate for 15 minutes, and I pull a tarot card to connect with spirit. And there was a time when I would pull the death card and I would be like, oh God, what's dying?
Mhm.
Like something is leaving your life, or like just a different energy. Now I pull a death card and I get so excited
Mhm.
because I know that something is shedding so that something can come into my life. And so it's like, oh, like there is never not a birth whenever there's a death. And now I get excited for the expansion, for the next level up, that is clearly coming whenever something's falling away. And I think it takes some time to start to, maybe some losses and like
Mhm.
surviving losses in our
Mhm.
lives to like really understand that like things do fall away and change form and you're still there, and that is actually the alchemy of who we are meant to become, you know. And I think when I was thinking about like a takeaway that I would want to offer to everybody, until we meet again, it would
Mhm.
be just like this understanding that we're held, you know. I think
Mhm.
to me these last 4 years have shown me beyond a shadow of a doubt. um, I often give the example of like there's like you can have no belief and like I don't believe in something. You can have a faith and a belief in something, and then you can have revelation. And you've had things in life that have shown you beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a larger intelligence holding us always, and that not any part of this is random. It's always the divine unfolding in service of who we were always meant to become. And so yes, we will be in the human experience and we will feel fear and we will have moments of uncertainty and all the things. And I think the larger knowing that we have to hold lightly in our consciousness is that there is a force that is always guiding every moment, every breath, pointing us in the direction of our becoming. And none of it's random. So we don't have to be afraid of anything, actually.
Mm. And thus is so much of the work of depth psychology. I
Mm,
mean, it's getting comfortable with what we're talking about. It's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's
mm,
making conscious the unconscious, right? It's not just learning to kind of grit your teeth and bear it. It's learning to really embrace and accept and celebrate and hold with reverence and reconnect to lost parts, I think, of ourselves,
mm,
and of the collective. And so I'm very grateful because that's also how we connected, was through that exploration of, and I guess love for the depths, right?
mhm, yes, absolutely.
Well,
So should we do our rapid fire questions with each other?
yeah, we're gonna end our with, like you guys always hear us do with our guests. We're gonna ask each other these questions because we did maybe like episode 2 or something, but we haven't since. And so I'm curious to see what the answers will be. So
And then go back and listen to if
mhm.
they've changed. I know. Okay,
Okay.
well, I'll start with
Mhm.
you. Vanessa, I'm going to ask you our rapid fire questions. So the first question is, who have been your greatest teachers, mentors, people that have impacted your path, whether you've known them or just their work has really moved you?
I mean, it's definitely been my daughter. I mean,
Mm,
for sure the biggest impact and change has been my daughter. Um, I would say all of my romantic partners actually.
mm,
John, but also my ex-fiance and my college love, like each of them in such a profound way has kind of changed the trajectory or the course of who I am as a person. Um, my mom, for sure, you.
mm,
Um, and then, there's the people who maybe are not known, but have kind of unlocked something in me that was there that I didn't have language for. And so I will always give reverence to my eternal um, archetypal obsession with David Bowie because there's something at 12 years old that gets unlocked. I don't know.
Well,
The-
that tickled me so that you said
I mean,
and Bowie.
and
So
Bowie.
much so that that is my child's middle name. That's
That is
neither
my
here nor there.
child's middle name, y'all. And I can't explain it other than to
Mm,
say that it's not just like oh, I love his music. It is archetypal. There's something
mm,
he represents so much more. And I think even at a really young age, I knew that on some
mm.
level, but I didn't really have language or understanding around it.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously there's been a lot of spiritual teachers as well. But yeah, I mean, I think being open, just being the kind of person who takes things in and is constantly trying to be open and malleable, like standing firm in who I am, but also being open and malleable. And
Mm,
so I could have a list that's a mile long because I feel like I could almost even say, like, everybody I've come in contact with in some way has been a teacher of mine. And I don't want to ever change that. I want that to always be my experience where like
mm.
everybody is teaching me something.
Yes. Love it. And what is flow for you, Vanessa?
What is flow for me? Flow for me is anything that I am doing that brings my body and my mind and my spirit kind of into one field. So
Mm.
for me, it's when I am in design mode. So when I'm being creative, and for me that looks like designing, interiors, exteriors, like the plants in the garden and things like that. Um, and it's embodied for me because my hands are usually physically doing the things and
Mm.
moving the furniture and touching the pillows and the blankets and the plants that I'm working with. And so
Mm.
I think it could be anything for me as long as like the body for sure is integrated into it.
And what breaks your heart?
Everything.
Mm.
I'm a very sensitive soul. And I think I've spent a lifetime fighting that. So I honestly will say everything.
Mm.
That is like not even an exaggeration. I think recently, so this is a kind of a funny story, but I have like forever and ever been obsessed with that show. So you think you could dance, since it was on, I don't even know when it started, like freaking 20 seasons ago.
Mm.
And I've fallen off of it now because, nobody really has cable. But anyway, recently, so my daughter is very embodied and loves music and loves dance. And I, like a month or so ago, I was like, you know what? You need to watch this show. I think you're going to love it. So I found it streams on, I don't know, like Disney or Plus or something. And she's obsessed with it. I knew she would be.
Mm.
And it's drama, right? It's like they go into people's stories, and it's like there's sad, and there's loss, and there's death, and there's character arcs. And we were laying there, and she turned to me and she was like, oh, Mom, this is so sad, I'm gonna cry. And I was already crying, and she's like, you're crying. And I was like, I'm crying. And we just had this exchange of like, it's okay, girl, like you can cry, it's gonna impact you, be sensitive, and just like honoring that.
Hmm. Beautiful. And I mean, I feel like we all know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway for those who didn't hear you say it
A
several
million
times throughout the
times.
years. What is your favorite food, Vanessa?
Macaroni and cheese.
You know.
It just is really anything pasta related, let's be
You know what's
real,
really
but
interesting? I can't think of the last time I saw you eat some mac and cheese.
well, what I love and what my body loves are very different things.
I'm just like, now that you say that, when was the last time you had some?
Yeah, what my soul longs for and what my body likes and can
Sad,
tolerate are
man.
not the same thing.
It's sad.
I think I probably ate a lot more macaroni and cheese at 25 than I did at 40, let's be real.
Well,
Okay, well, now we're
okay.
going now we're going back. So who have been your greatest teachers? Who have impacted you the most, whether, alive or just people you've met along the journey or have impacted you?
Hmm. Well, like you said, there's certainly the did you leave?
Nope.
Certainly the teachers, the Maya Angelou's, the Caroline Mace, the the Dr. Wayne Dyer, the spiritual teachers that have really impacted my perspectives, but also, yeah, family, chosen and otherwise. I think certainly my Cairo and my Cairo's father and I'm going to say your partner, John,
Mm,
has been one of the most potent catalysts and teachers, and you, my love, in terms of just like people that have been like the chosen family for me and had my back. Um and then beyond that, like all of my teachers are the people that are unapologetically just being themselves,
mhm,
and I'm so inspired by the people that do that thing we were talking about, just like doing it their way and are really aware that the moment of history that we are living through is a very particular one and that they came to be way showers and to be leaders at a time where it's really necessary that we all stand in our power in a way that we never have before. So those that are doing it, there's just like so far too many to name, but those are the people that I learn from every day.
mm. And what is flow for you?
Oof, this stuff, I think I am in flow when I am in alignment with the destiny that I came to carry out. I think when I'm facilitating groups, when I am letting source work through me. I always quote that artist, and I'm like blanking on his name, but he said, art The purpose of art is to comfort the disturbed and to disturb the comfortable. And I
Mhm,
feel
mhm,
like that's like my purpose in
mhm,
being in this body, that I came to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. And I feel like whenever I'm doing that in a way that I really feel like I'm being of service and I'm trusting myself, it feels like flow and it feels like God flowing through me.
mm. What breaks your heart?
Hmm. What breaks my heart is that line from A Bronx Tale where he says the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And I believe each of us comes here with a destiny that we have the potential to fulfill. And I think it really breaks my heart when I see people sleeping on their talent, and because of their pain points and their conditioned limiting beliefs, they hold themselves back from the
Mm,
thing that I can see that they long to do and be and embody. And it breaks my heart because it's like, this is it.
this is
This
it.
isn't a dress rehearsal. You get
Mhm.
this one life, babe. Yeah, I think that breaks
Ugh,
my heart.
I feel that.
Mhm.
And what about you? What's your favorite food?
Mm.
Miss
You
Vegan?
know, this is tough, but shout out to Hey Sunshine Kitchen and the Spork sisters, which I want to give them their love because they are a sister duo that started out with these cooking classes in West Hollywood. Now they have a restaurant in LA, if you're ever here, called Hey Sunshine Kitchen. And their food is like my favorite food. Their
I'll vouch for
burgers,
that.
their hot chicken sandwiches, like Hey
Ooh,
Sunshine Kitchen, all
chickpea
their food.
nuggets. They're
It's
so
all
good.
so good. So, I mean, I know that's a lot of foods encapsulated in one restaurant, but I can't choose. Like, if I could just have their food every day, that would be my
I mean, you
favorite.
kind of do, don't you?
I kind of do because I do what I want. But yes, absolutely. They're my favorites.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, like I said, it's goodbye for now. Make sure you all stay in
Unless
touch,
Unless you
unless.
wanna come to Cabo for New Year's, which we
That's
still
right.
have a couple spots left if you
That's
wanna
right.
come.
As of recording this, we are what, like October, like right in the beginning of end of September, beginning of October. We have a few spots left. Um, Actually, I think we only have one shared room left. We have like two kings.
Hmm.
There's very few, y'all. So if you have been trying to get to one today in my week-long intensives for the last few years and you haven't, this is gonna be it because this shit is on the ocean. It is gonna be gorgeous and magical. So make it happen.
That's right.
Um, you can find it at either one of our Instagrams. Obviously, have the links. The cheaper than therapy Instagram has the link. So for sure, retreats. We'll be seeing you there. We still have our private online community where we run groups every week. And we've also brought in a group of amazing clinicians and coaches that are also leading other workshops and groups as well. It's expanding. We're always like evolving it and growing it and changing it. So meet us there. Um, and obviously our own personal lives, right? We've got both of us have books, both of us have workshops, all that jazz. So just stay in touch. And we hope to keep connecting with you all.
I love you guys.
Love you guys.